What's up, y'all? You're tuning in to the Here to Uplift podcast. If you've been here before, welcome back. And thank you for being a part of our Uplift community. If you're new here, woohoo! Thanks for joining us, and we hope you continue listening and engaging with our community, where we center the stories of inspiring and impactful entrepreneurs and community leaders. I'm Lolo Fisher, your host, and I'm so glad you're here. Let's get into it.
All right, y'all, welcome back to the Here to Uplift podcast. I'm Lolo, and I'm excited to be here with my new friend, Leslie Avalos. Welcome. Can you introduce yourself for the people?
My name is Leslie Avalos, and I am a healing and manifestation coach, and I help women overcome trauma, sexual abuse, and really life's challenges to be able to rise into their power and their purpose.
I love that. You said that so eloquently, too.
You know, girl, it took me forever to get to this place of what do I do with people?
It is hard. It is hard to create your purpose statement, I feel like, especially as kind of solopreneur, when you're doing it all and doing a lot of things, to get that one clear statement so people know what you do is challenging.
Yeah. Well, especially you want to just help people. Mm-hmm. And you want to help everyone. Mm-hmm. Initially, especially. You're just but I want to help everybody. But what do you mean I have to help one type of person?
Right.
And then going through the journey, it's okay, I get it. It just starts to click a little bit more because of the passion and the transformation that you've had. You're I want to speak directly to that woman that also wants that same transformation. Mm-hmm. And of course, anybody else that's hey, this relates to me, this feels good for me, it's going to be good. Okay. So yeah, it took a while to get there, but I feel more in that this last year than ever.
Oh, good. I definitely see with anybody, but especially with women business owners and entrepreneurs, once you find that statement in your niche, the trajectory of success just speeds up like that. Yeah. It's so much quicker.
Well, I really had to own it. And I think for so long for myself, there was a lot of shame and embarrassment even around what I've experienced. And as this last year has unfolded, there's been a lot of stuff that I have yet to share on social media that's still in the process in the background, but just healing another layer. And in being able to also be more authentic and honest and speaking on this with other women. Right. And I hear, oh, me too. Or I hear, oh, I know someone too. Or oh yeah, that happened to my sister or my cousin. It's just so close to home for a lot of us that it's just very hush hush.
Yes.
You don't speak about it. You don't talk about it, and
extremely stigmatized.
And then it's just okay, well, now that I know this, and it's not just a statistic in a book, it's my own, going through my own journey of healing and getting to that side of feeling okay with who I am, and also being able to utilize that pain and that in the moment, what felt it was suffering, it was struggle, it was victim mentality even, because you don't feel you can have certain things or be certain, be a certain person. Yeah. You feel you're not capable of love or of success or of good things to happen to you. And so now it's oh, I get it. And can I be that bridge for those women that I find oftentimes when we experience painful things in our life, there's this identity that we carry that, we can't do certain things because, or can I have healthy relationships because, or if they find out about it, are they going to leave and not want to be with me because
right.
So it's just so beautiful, to be able to get to that place of okay, here we go, here we are. I'm proud of it. I'm owning it. And then for anyone that's out there, women specifically that have experienced things that maybe haven't processed it or haven't been believed or haven't even talked about it, you get to be heard.
Right.
You get to be understood and loved and supported, and you get to heal and have everything you want.
It's so true. And I think this piece that you're talking about, identity, has been a recurring theme in recent podcasts, actually. Just in every conversation, we've talked about being a successful business owner is also about changing your identity, becoming that person that you want to be. And it's the same thing for healing. I feel we hold on to these identities of trauma. I am a traumatized person. I am a victim. Even sometimes maybe arguable, but survivor.
Oh, yeah.
We hold on to that definition of ourselves as a survivor, but with a negative connotation rather than from the strength of overcoming
that part.
So I'm definitely hearing that.
Yeah. And it's a fine line almost.
Yeah.
because what I learned from my own experience was I really try to be positive because I wanted to like get over it. I wanted to move on. I wanted to like let it go. I wanted to forgive. I knew I couldn't forget, but like, can I try?
Yeah.
And so in trying to be positive and trying to be like, yeah, I get it. And like, yeah, they were kids one time and maybe like they got hurt too. And like hurt people. And like just trying to like really just move on from it. There wasn't the part of me that was validated. There wasn't the part of me that was allowing myself to grieve, to be angry, to feel the pain that really gave, like it left. And so it was like I was trying to jump a step.
Yeah.
I was trying to jump a step and it worked for a little while.
But it's always tucked down in there. Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Well, I want to know how you actually dealt with it, but can we like jump back a little bit for folks who don't know you, for
sure.
us to just learn a little bit more about your story and like why you're so confident in talking about overcoming sexual abuse and trauma?
Yeah. Well, it's a very interesting story, I'll say. But I believe that I was a byproduct of a woman who had been my mother, very abused as a child as well. And she was victimized and brainwashed and manipulated into thinking certain things were okay. And because she wanted love so much, she was willing to allow some of these things to happen. And that was me being sexually abused. So from the ages of 8 to 12.
So you were a child when this was happening. Okay.
And in my mind, for so many years, like it was okay. It was normalized. This is just what happened, And so here's this guy who provides for the family, who works and takes care of me and my mom, and she had children with him. And he also does these things to me at night. And there were certain things and rules and discussions that kind of played this like almost as if this was my partner. Like I was married to him in some sense. So a very sick, human being going through his own whatever. I don't really understand what that was. And I don't know if I ever will understand.
Right.
And but I ran away at 12 and because we got disconnected. I got disconnected from my dad and my dad's family. And I was like, dude, like I want to see my dad.
Yeah.
And I miss them. And I was in a home that was very controlling. So I couldn't be on the phone. There was rules. There was just things that were very like tight. And I get it why now, right?
Exactly.
Looking back. And I found my grandma in the phone book. And I was like,
wow,
Abuelita, like, how are you? And I called her real quick, making sure they weren't calling on the other line to see who are you talking to. Found out my dad had another daughter. And I was just like, I want to see you guys. So I don't know if it was that day or that week or sometime close to that phone call, I ran away to the fire station and I just said, hey, like, my mom slaps me, hits me, which was true. And I want to see my dad. And that was it.
Did you know at that time going to the fire station that like those words would cue something next?
No, not at all. Okay. And I think too, like for me, I just wanted to see my dad.
Yeah.
And I didn't want to tell everything that was happening at the time.
Right.
And even coming forward, like I didn't tell until this last year, where it was actually reported it and like a lot of things have happened since.
Right.
But my dad came and I went over there and it was just the most beautiful experience to reunite. Well, that whole year I got into trouble because I live with my dad. I moved with my dad. My dad's passive, so I got into so much trouble. I went out. I didn't come home. I would be like just out in the streets, from controlling to like
wilding out.
Yes, and I sure did. So from there, I met my boyfriend about a year later. And we got together and I was so down to do anything. I was getting into trouble with the law. I went to juvenile hall like a few times. I got on the house arrest thing. Like I didn't care, right? I had so much anger in me and like felt so alone and abandoned and like no one cared. And I was just down to do whatever. So I was headed down a very, I think if I hadn't had my daughter, I got pregnant at 14 and I had her at 15.
Wow.
If I hadn't had her at that age, I probably would have ended up in prison. I joke around and it's not really a joke, but it's like coping. I would have ended up being like on crack in the streets, in prison or a stripper on crack in the streets. It would have been all three. Like, it would have been bad because I just didn't care. And I was down and I wanted to fit in. I wanted to have friends. I wanted to be cool. I wanted to be liked. You know, I was already hypersexualized because of what happened.
Right.
So then I was like, oh, I give my body
You
for love.
Figured it was normalized
Yeah,
still.
that's how I get guys' attention, through my body.
Wow.
Yeah.
And so young to be figuring all of that out. So when you got pregnant and had your daughter at such a young age, did something shift in your mind then, or was it later?
So it was still a long journey with like me and addictions in particular. But yeah, when I had my daughter, or once I got pregnant, I was like, okay, like she will not experience the same thing as I experienced.
You had to grow up so young. Oof.
You know, period, point blank, that will not be the case. She will not go through the same pain. No one will ever get close to her in that sense to be able to hurt her, or no. Like, so that put a fire in me to like graduate. You know, I got my GED. I graduated a year early. I was still struggling. I had drug addictions with crystal meth for a while. Alcohol kind of came after that.
Yeah.
So it was challenging, you know, up until this last year, even like building a healthy relationship with alcohol. You know, I haven't touched alcohol in about 7 weeks, and I feel good on that. Like there's this like in me of like, I can leave that there. To say I'll never have a drink again, I don't know, but like, it's just, I feel good with that right now. But that took such a long time to get to, you know? But yeah, it took a while to like still get over those things. But yeah, once I had known I was pregnant, it's like, okay, I need to do something with my life.
Right.
So that she can live a good life.
Yeah.
That was a huge driving factor for me.
I'm curious, since you reconnected back with your dad's side of the family by this point, did you get support from that side of your family once you were pregnant?
Yeah, you know, my aunt, my dad's sister, she's been incredible, like a mom in my life. And I lived with my daughter's dad for a while, and it was an abusive relationship. Learned a lot. I kind of felt, see, here's the thing about like people that experience abuse is they don't like to ask for help, right? Like you isolate, you're like, I don't want to be a bother. And me and my dad never really had a close relationship. Even after that, again, he was like kind of passive and going through his own things of like figuring out who he is. And so I didn't really feel like I could depend on him. He was struggling with they had me young. Mom and dad were like 19 and 20 when they had me. So and they were first generation here. So, and I know and this is the other thing with like the work that I do. I believe that a lot of people have experienced trauma. I can't say 100% because I can't say that, but the thing is like everyone's families have a background of, you know, war, of extreme poverty, challenges, you know, stigma, racism. Like there's things that people have experienced, grandparents and great grandparents, that have been hard.
Right.
Like really, really hard. They were just trying to survive.
Exactly. And if you're stuck in that survival story, that survival cycle, it's near impossible to actually interrupt it amidst the trauma.
And it gets passed down so like it's like insidious in some sense. It's like so sneaky and like, oh, like I didn't even see that, how I'm continuing to react in the way that my mom did, or, you know, be defensive or be hypercritical, or, you know, not trust men or talk shit about people. Like it's just these little things. But if we really do look back, we can all kind of sit here and say, okay, there are certain things that I can heal from. So anyway, back to your story. Yeah, I didn't go with my dad until I was like 19.
Okay.
And not even then, I went with my aunt. Yeah, I lived with her. Yeah, but they were there. I think I'm just starting to realize in the last like 5 years, you know, it's
in
like,
what ways people were there.
Yeah. Again, with the whole like, I don't want to bother anybody, or do they even like me? Like when you experience things as a child in that sense, call it trauma, call it abuse, call it whatever you'd like. You create this identity that, you know, you're not cared for. Right? Like you're alone. No one cares about you, or, you know, you don't matter. You're not valuable, etc. And obviously that's not true. That's not a fact. But you create that as a fact in your own reality and in your own world. And that's the lens that you're kind of looking at life through.
Right.
So it like took me so much guts to ask my aunt, like, can I move in with you? Can I rent a room at 19?
Yeah.
She was like, yeah, let me talk to her husband at the time. And they let me move in and I just paid rent, and it was a small amount. And it was awesome because that was like the first time that I felt
some level of independence.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And even support, right? It's like, well, I can't go with my mom, can't go with my dad. Like, where am I going to go? Stuck in this relationship.
Making that first decision to ask for help is one of the biggest steps possible.
Yeah. And it takes so much time and practice because there's so many different elements and areas of our life where we can use that support and that love. And I say support and love because that's really what help is. It's allowing yourself to receive.
Yeah, absolutely. I feel like one of the things we don't nearly talk about enough is that place of receiving. And it's one of the most, I think I wrote a question down on here. About being an advocate, right? So we talk about people being advocates for others, but that place of self-advocacy is one of the biggest things. And you can't actually advocate for yourself if you're not willing to receive the help.
Yeah. And then that's kind of the two pieces, right? It's I feel like sometimes healing and personal development and manifestation and all the things can be so contradictory, right? So it's okay, be independent, take care of yourself, have your own things, do you, solo, bolo, whatever. But then it's receive, let yourself be loved, allow, take it slow. And so you're just what do we do with this?
Girl, I'm so glad you brought that up because it really makes me think of relationships in particular, right? I'm thinking about, I feel like I was talking with Anthony about this not long ago, but our families, I'll speak for my own, my family definitely has put in me this sense of independence. You work for yourself, you're always secure, you make sure that you are good and that no man can take that away from you. And at the same time, you want to find a man who will take care of you and provide everything, but they battle each other. Those two mindsets of I got to provide for myself and never let there be a worry, but then also let somebody take care of me. They butt heads. Yeah. And I am so glad that I have come at a place where I see the balance now. But figuring that out as a young adult was it's one or the other. I don't understand how they come together. And it's for you to define for yourself.
Yes.
But the actual messages of letting somebody take care of you, this dependence or codependence is dangerous compared to the independence principle, because I definitely came from a hyper independent standpoint. It was hard for me in relationships to even let, in my current relationship, to allow myself to be no, I don't have to pay for that. Right. Or no, I don't have to push through every single migraine I have because someone's willing to help me out. Yeah. It just in my mind, no, I got to do it. I got to figure it out. I got to survive.
Yeah. Yeah. And that really is survival mode. And I think too, that's such a beautiful example, to share and be vulnerable about, because it's again, you don't know what you don't know until you know. There was a quote that I'm going to chop it up, but it's something about, it's not necessarily the beliefs that you have that are bad or understanding what beliefs you have that are bad, but it's the beliefs that you don't know that you have.
Yeah.
Right? It's
what's deep down in you that you don't even realize you're operating from.
Yeah. And I mean, relationships are just the perfect mirror for that. That's why I love relationships so much, not just with romantic relationships, but we have relationships with everything. So that whole balance thing, I think the only way to really understand for yourself the balance is to live life and to learn. And this is why reflection is so key, and really getting clear within yourself. Because what I find is oftentimes, and this is the same thing that I lived on for a long time, the idea of I need to do these things in order to be good enough.
Yep.
So I had a big drive to be loved.
Right.
I wanted men's attention. I wanted to feel sexy and beautiful and look good and feel good. And I thought that being successful, I knew that educating myself was important, right? But that's not why I went to college. I knew that getting an education was important to like learn, grow. Yeah, okay. But that wasn't like, yeah, I want to grow and I want to learn.
You saw it as a point of attraction.
Yes.
Interesting.
Yes. And I think a lot of people do, whether they're willing to admit that or not.
Okay.
Is like their own, again,
I never thought of it that way.
Beliefs that they don't know if they, know. Like,
shoot, now I'm like,
why do we do what we do? Right? Why do we do what we do? Working out was the same thing for me. I started working out consistently, like religiously, and it took me like 4 years to get to that point of like, okay, I'm going all in. After a breakup, and I like realized, wow, this was like a really toxic ending in a relationship. I was 24, and I was like, okay, it's me. Like, hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Although there was just so much also realizations after that. And I was just like, okay, I need to figure out why. And this led back to like healing, because I knew that it had something to do with my experiences, right as childhood. And when I went on this journey of working out, it was because I wanted to look good. Yeah, I wanted to be healthy.
Yeah.
But that wasn't really why. I wanted to be sexy. I wanted to be fine. I wanted,
you still
like
wanted some
that
level
revenge
of attention.
Body. Yeah. Like that was the driving force. But I didn't see it then.
Gotcha.
I didn't see it then. Now reflecting, I see it. I thought I was dumb. I thought I wasn't smart. I thought, well, I have a daughter, like I need to make money, but to make money so I could be valuable, to make money so I could matter, to make money so I could be someone, so I can prove myself. It wasn't, it's just really interesting, but it all worked out.
Right.
The survival mode gets you to a certain point.
Yes. That's why I try to tell folks, I'm like, I'm not saying don't be in survival mode. I'm saying don't stay in survival mode.
It's
when
the
I bring
next
that
level
up.
Upgrade.
Exactly. Like that's what victim mentality does. I think victim mentality keeps you in survival mode. And I'm hoping that at minimum there's a survival mode, because it's so much darker and sadder and harder if you drop below that to that level of hopelessness. And that's a whole mental health conversation we can have on another episode. But survival mode gets you to that certain place. And then we all need some sort of defining moment to get us into thriving. And it takes work, but sometimes it's that singular moment that gets us to a new place. And I think there's different levels of thriving too.
Yeah.
Right? Like for me, I would say like a year or two back, I felt a mix of survival and thriving, because I was surviving in the sense of income generation, but I started thriving because I started going for my dreams in entrepreneurship. It was this balance and tug. It was like hard because I wasn't there yet, but like, ooh, I'm giving myself these aspects I've been wanting for so long.
The in between.
Yeah. And then a new level of thriving really hit for me once I have my family now. Like, to say I can go home to my family is a dream I had for so long. But
what a gift.
Didn't have it. And part of that was my hyper independence challenges, like always trying to live alone. I lived alone in a 4-bedroom house before, like just 2 years ago.
Yeah.
Lived alone, 4-bedroom house, and felt like, that's what I wanted. Yeah. But it's like I always had this craving for family to come home to,
But being willing to look at yourself is what got you here.
Absolutely.
Right? Being able to say, okay, like
being honest. Honest with ourselves. It's so hard, and you don't have to tell the world your truth. Right at the moment you start figuring things out, you're like, ooh, you realize, like you said, I'm the problem in some areas, whatever areas it is. You don't have to announce it to the world that you're the problem, but you got to start working on those things for sure.
And not point and blame to everyone else.
Yes,
that was a big one. And here's the thing too with like the healing journey. I am not always in alignment and always happy and always like out of survival and thriving. No, like that is not it at all. Like there's still, especially when you're in the field of personal development, in the field of building a business, in the field of challenging yourself to go deeper with a person in relationship, because you don't want to just live the average mediocre relationship that, for me, it like scares the fuck out of me to have like an average mediocre relationship where people are just like very unconscious. And it's exciting. It's exciting to be able to like challenge yourself in new ways. That's my perspective. I love it. And I really want to maximize this human experience, because if I can be at my deathbed and look back and say, oh my gosh, I lived such a great life, and my grandkids, my kids, my nieces, nephews, like all the people in my life are like, wow, you a G. I'm gonna be like, yes, I am. Like, go and do the same thing, right? Living legend that did the thing. If she could do it, I could do it, type of thing.
Yes.
And she experienced those things in childhood, and like she overcame that. And not only that, she healed these relationships with her mom, with her dad. Like, you know, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of inner work to be able to go from there to that. Not only that, not carry that baggage with you as, again, this victim or like the survivor. And again, it's not bad. It's just like when we get into those modes, I get into those modes and I look at it and I see it's like another layer.
Yeah.
Peeling the onion has always been like the idea that I hear a lot, like peeling the layers.
Right.
That's really what it is. Right. When these things happen to you over and over and over, and then in manifestation, I hear a lot, right, where like, well, it's one thing after another, or these things always happen to me. It's like a cycle. I can't get out of it. Or, you know, these things happen to me and it's like I'm stuck in it. It's like it keeps happening. The same type of people, men taking advantage, or friends being fucked up, or I'm sorry, I don't know if
you're good. Go ahead.
It's like these things happen because you're carrying that identity.
Right.
So you're almost like a radar of like, hey,
you're saying you want something different, but what you're actually putting out into the world and thinking in your mind and recycling is, I don't deserve these greater things.
Yes. And the laws of the universe, you know, we're going to get a little like woo if you'd like. But here's the thing. Like, if you study physics, like if you go and study physics and like atoms and the way that energy works, it's like, oh, like that just makes sense. When you look at like I was into like biology. I loved science. Like that was one topic that I loved. I didn't really care for anything else but like science. The body, learning about the body was just so cool. And when you look at like a cellular level, like into the atom, and you see how something is vibrating, right? It's like at the cellular level, it's vibrating. It's not just sitting there, it's vibrating. And it's like, if we have those like gajillions of them in our body, so how could we not be energy? You know, and then our emotions, you can feel someone's emotions. You could just feel that
the way
energy
our nervous
radiating.
system is connected physiologically is it's crazy sometimes to really think about.
So it's like to be able to get past yourself essentially into the deeper, because we can't even, have you ever heard of the hierarchy of needs?
Maslow.
So it's like, okay, so survival, right? Like that's where people
the base
stay.
Of the pyramid. Yeah,
if you don't got what you need, how in the F are you going to be creative and inspired and tapped in? Like, no, it's not going to happen for you, because you're trying to figure out how you're going to eat your next meal, or how you're going to pay rent, or how you're going to deal with this dude doing certain things to you, or like, you know, you're feeling this loss, or whatever it is that you're dealing with that you don't know how to deal with. A lot of it is emotions that people don't know how to deal with.
Yes.
Thoughts that people don't know how to work through or process. Right? These identities that keep on coming and repeating and showing themselves up in the day-to-day in the mind that they don't know how to shift out of.
Yes.
So that is the work.
And that's exactly, for me, what therapy helped me do. And now it's been years to where I actually was just texting my therapist yesterday, and she'll do like quick check-ins like, hey, just checking in, everything good? Because we got to a place where at one point I was like, I need weekly sessions because I feel like I'm going to break every single week. And then it turned into, you know, every 2 weeks, and then it turned into once a month. And then it was like, every 2 months we're doing a check-in, and it's more for me to talk about how did I cope when these feelings came up. And it's not to say that for any human experience, like I went through therapy, I'm not going to feel any of those pain points anymore. No, like human life is going to bring you pain points. It's just part of living.
Yeah, the human experience.
Exactly. And if you think of the human experience or those pain points as places of growth or as places of opportunity, and like reframe your mind, it's not going to take the suckiness out of those moments, but it's going to mean you can move through them quicker and figure out purpose from those moments. And that's what I've loved about my therapy experience. But I didn't have those tools at first. That was the place that I think everybody could use growth, whether you get it from therapy or a coach, or you're looking at it yourself online because you ain't got the funds for therapy yet, you know, like find those tools.
Yeah, I love that you said that. I have a therapist, and this is a therapist that really helped me move through, like, again, the things that I was like not capable of sitting with. And not only that, but being able to get to a point to report what happened and all of the
to
things
own that story
that really came up with that, because that was scary, you know.
I bet.
But I highly recommend for anyone, you know, therapy or coaching. And if you are going to get a coach, I think it's important. This is something really I want to touch on, because when you think of healing, you might find like certain topics, or even like that's what they focus on, you know, trauma, healing, beautiful. Then there's manifestation and alignment. And when I heard about manifestation, girl, I was like, oh my God, it's in my mind. Like, I have the power. Like, what? Like, how come no one taught me this?
The power.
Yeah, no, really. I watched the movie The Secret, the documentary.
Yep.
That was my first introduction to law of attraction. I had never, ever heard of it prior to that. I was 24. That was that same year, 24 to 25.
That you were getting out of the abusive relationship.
No, that one was the abusive relationship, but that was a very toxic relationship.
Toxic.
Like that
Gotcha.
push-pull,
Gotcha.
you know, like, yeah, we're
Still
good.
wasn't it.
And then no, and yeah, no, it was, again, all these things are mirrors, right? Why is this happening? And then, not to go even deeper into a better question, is like, what is it that I'm doing that is allowing this to happen? What is it that I'm feeling that is allowing these things to happen, right? How am I contributing to this thing happening? Whatever it is, whether it's being broke or being in a bad relationship or not getting a relationship or not being in your career or in the body that you want, like, it's really about how are we contributing? And again, it's like when these things come up, we can look at them as like, okay, that's something that I can heal on. But the thing with healing is, like, sometimes I think people get impatient because they want it fast. And I get it. Girl, that was my thing. I want it now. but I want it now.
Everything.
I would say that so much when I was in my early 20s. I remember, because I remember just saying that, like, but I want it now. Yeah, but I want it now. And like, I was like a brat, like, okay, but I want it now. Well, you're not going to get it now. But no one told me that, right? I just had to go through life and figure that out. And like, when you think of healing and then manifestation and alignment, I believe, especially when you're looking for a coach to help you, or a therapist, or whoever it is, and therapists obviously go to school to teach you. Like, what I've learned with my therapy versus like coaches that I've hired is that my therapist has helped me with the very fundamentals of like getting out of survival mode.
Right.
So like basic things that all of us need to learn. You know, and to have someone hold that compassion, that safe space for me has been immense, you know. And when you're looking for a coach, if you are looking for a coach, I highly recommend finding a coach that has experienced similar things that you've experienced. Because what I learned about manifestation and alignment when I got into that space and I was listening to all these people talking on it, it was like, oh, alignment, like, be happy, be positive, focus on the things that you want. Like, and so
sometimes it like skirts over like the things you actually got to work on.
Again,
right?
you're skipping the step.
Yeah, it's like, oh, here's this great thing, but it's like, where's the work? Where's the work? That's what I struggle with, honestly, with when I see mindset or manifestation coaching. I think far too many of those coaches aren't really talking about the hard stuff.
And it's like, look, don't dwell in it and sit in it, and like, again, make it your home, right? Like, when I still feel insecure in my relationship sometimes. Like, I still feel like some type of way around sex and like connecting and like what that means. And because this is a healthy guy, and it's like, I don't just want you for sex like those other guys did. So like, that's not the only way we're going to connect. But for me, it was just so like important, and like the thing that I used as a light. Like, if we're not doing that, or a certain amount of times a week, or if something's off, or like that's not the way you're giving me attention or affection, I automatically feel something about myself, right? So there's these things that I've learned so much in this relationship in particular, but like, there's still moments where I'm feeling these things to show me. And then as time happens, I call it the like very uncomfortable in between stage. Like, when you realize something's going on, and you're like, okay, cool. But like, now you have to integrate it.
Right.
And you have to like become it, and you have to practice, but it's not perfect. And you still like will let your emotions like get heightened, or say something that you don't want to say, or mean, you know, be mean. Like, I'm very like words. like with my relationship, that's how I go low, you know, below the belt even. Like, and it has been a while since I've been like that. But last year was so hard for us. Like to get to this point now, I think it just took two patient people with each other that actually wanted to like grow. But it took a lot of freaking like work to get to this point. And for me, I think I also just learned so much in the ways that I would self-sabotage love and push away love and test love and just being so freaking afraid of love. Like really. Because then you can hurt me, because then you can take advantage of me, because then, you know, something could happen. And I do not want to feel that pain.
Right.
So I'm going to
But the fears can't navigate your life.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like in those moments, you have to deal with the triggers that come up instead of bypassing it or pretending like it's not there or not talking about it because you don't want to ruffle feathers or because then that's not even your person anyway, because you got to be able to talk about things, right? But it's like, again, don't live there and stay there and make a home in it. But as these things come up, be willing to look at it. And that's where like the tools and the processes and the reflection is really an important piece.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I have a question that I don't think you're going to have a hard time answering, but I think a lot of folks I talk to do. Do you love yourself?
I do. And it's like love, self-love. Oh my gosh. When I like got into self-love, I was like, but I do love myself. But like I go to the gym, right? Like I take care of myself. Like I take showers. Like I put lotion on my skin. Like, yeah, I love myself. Like, but love, let's just talk about that word.
Yeah. I ask this because, especially with what you've brought up of like that search for love, that definitely comes from a place of pain or trauma. And while everybody's traumas may be different, I think they all stem in some place of lacking or wanting love in a way that we're defining that we're not always getting. But
100%.
how we give it to ourselves
100%
is so much harder to understand when you're growing up and living through this human experience. It's hard to see it. So I think when I ask people, most of the time they're like, yeah. And then there's like a thought. Like people will say yeah, and then they like think back and they're like, actually, I don't know. They may say I love myself in thought, like in the idea of it, but
how do you
actionably are you loving yourself?
Yeah. And for me, it's like been a journey. Initially, it was the working out and the self-care in those ways. That was all I could give myself because I wasn't emotionally available for myself. Right? I didn't make the time to like sit and cry. Girl, I didn't cry.
Sit with yourself.
Yes.
That's
like,
so hard.
I would be so proud of the whole year not crying. Like, think about that. Now, I cried last night. You know, like, it's just something that, like, as it comes, I allow it to move through me because I've changed the stigma and, like, the relationship that I have with my emotions. I hear from so many women, like, oh, well, I'm not angry. They'll say they don't get angry, or they're ashamed of getting angry. It's like, well, I know you're lying.
That person.
I know you lying.
Definitely that person. Anger scares me. It still does. Like I really, really have to work. When I'm angry about something, now I can name it. But there was a time where I would just like, oh, I don't get angry. No, like I'll get sad, but I don't get angry. And it's like, no, I'm hiding the anger because I'm scared of it.
Yeah.
But that's a tangent.
Yeah, no, and it's true. It's like scared of who you are.
Yeah.
Right? Scared of what you're going to do or scared of how people are going to perceive you. That's big, but that's self-love. So like when I think of love, I think of the love, the word love that we've been taught, I believe, is thrown around. You know, it's like, oh, I love the flowers. We love everything, right? Like really, like I could be very like, oh my God, I love this. I love that. I love this. But like to really love someone and include yourself, like it's to love all of you. And that even means the parts of you that are not quote unquote good.
Right.
The parts of
the
you
shadows.
that are, yeah. So it's like, I know for a long time when I got into this field of personal development, especially in the beginning, I wanted to be someone that I was not because I didn't like who I was. I didn't really take the time to look at anything that I liked about myself. And so I was constantly judging myself and shaming myself and being hypercritical of myself. And so that was like just my pattern of how I was very hard on myself. And there's still like very much moments of like, okay, we're doing this again. Like, really? Like, thought I worked on this, you know? But it's like, no, because you're a work in progress forever. If you're going to challenge yourself, and I'm telling you, if you're going to be a business owner, personal development for life. Like, it's just it's the game you signed up for.
Right.
But I love it because, like, for me, I could eat this stuff up all day. There's something in me that just, again, I want to maximize this human experience, and I just want to like live a really great life.
Right.
And that's for us to define. And for me, that means challenging myself in these different areas of my life.
Yeah.
You know, and maybe not having it all right now, but building a life where I can have it all and be able to maintain it all, right? Have the capacity within myself to have so many things that come with that, boundaries and the self-love and being able to communicate and understand and patience and not take things personally and just so much with that. But when I think of self-love, I think of like really being able to love all of ourselves as we are. So it took a while for me to get to that place.
Yeah.
And even now, like there's certain things when they do come up, I'm like angry with myself or I'm frustrated. And then I have to take a second to just be like, okay, well, being angry with myself and being frustrated and beating myself up just makes it worse.
Yeah.
Like when we're speaking on like manifestation and like energy, directing your energy, that you're doing this. You're like fighting yourself. You know, you're like, you're dragging your feet.
Yeah.
It's dead weight. And it really does nothing for you but make you feel worse.
Yeah.
About everything. About life, about yourself, and you project that shit out.
Yes, you can feel it.
Yep.
You can feel it.
You're like, I'm mad at myself, but I'm gonna take it out on you. You know? Like, for real.
Well, you've clearly been through this journey where you now can speak on these things because you've put it into practice yourself and in your own life. And you're even saying timelines because I think there's very clear moments where something shifts in your own life that we all can identify it for ourselves, even if we're not sure like what changed. You're like, something changed here. But I'm curious, like whether it's from experiences coaching clients or teaching folks at the Power Hour class, like what tips would you give someone who's brand new to manifestation or maybe just having a hard time figuring out self-love for themselves? Like, what would you tell them to do?
Such a good question. You know, I would say to try to surround yourself with as many people that are doing life in this way of wanting to grow as much as possible. Because for one, when you get out of your community of people that you're usually doing life with, where I'm not saying this is for everyone, but for the majority, and for myself specifically, I just felt like I wasn't having real conversations like this with my friends. It was just like going out, we'd bond over alcohol, you know, partying, like then I would do that with like men, and like that was just like how I did life with people. And once I got into personal development, it's like, oh, we're going to talk about, you know, how to shift your mindset, or we're going to talk about growth mindset, or we're going to talk about emotions. And it was like, well, I don't have those conversations with my friends.
Yeah.
So now it puts me in an environment where I'm going to be real. I'm going to hear the real. Hopefully, you know, hopefully it's not some person saying, be happy all the time. Again, this is where like that distinguishment with the alignment thing, because it's like, no, you're going to have these emotions. How do you work through them? And like, again, not sit there and stay there and make a home in it, but like be able to shift through and then get the lesson of whatever's happening in that.
Right.
So if we could have real ass conversations like this, where I'm telling you like the real of like how I reacted with my boyfriend over this thing, and then how I learned how I was perceiving myself, or how I was afraid of something, and so therefore I was trying to like control, like it's like, oh damn, you got all that from there? Like, interesting. And let me think about how that actually can play out into my life.
Yeah.
Right? It opens the door to like understand. And like in therapy, I'm sure you've like learned about how the brain works, or like how we do things that are familiar, and like the patterns, right? And like how it's something that you've made a home in. You're comfortable there.
Right.
Even if it sounds crazy, it's like, what you mean I love chaos? I'm trying to find peace.
So you say. So you say.
You know, that's another one that I like, we'd be good for a week and I'm like, ooh, I gotta stir some shit up. It's been too good. You know,
it's funny because one of my biggest skills or strengths when talking about a work setting, right, is adaptability. And I realize I actually don't like chaos or changes or having to shift plans. I love planning and I love when things go to plan. Adaptability is something I have to be good at, and I became good at because I worked in crisis management settings in the past. Like before
big.
doing what I do now, I was on call.
Yeah.
You know, that's like literally why I got out of student affairs is I could not shut off my brain anymore from being on call and in crisis response mode. And people don't think like you work in higher education, like you're not working in the police department or something, like you don't realize all these different roles
it takes on you
in something. Like, so I was like, yeah, I work in residence life, or I work in social justice, and in the higher ed setting, it just meant that in different ways I was on call for major emergencies. I can't tell you how many, but I know it's been over 60 response calls to suicidal ideation or attempt.
Dude, that's like a response on your nervous system. Like, oh my God, I gotta like.
To this day, I wake up to every single sound.
Wow.
Every single sound. There's a reason. Like my youngest son right now, he's almost 4 months now at this point that we're interviewing, but we have him sleep in our living room now, because originally I was like, yeah, I just want him close. We have this bed, like the side bassinet thing that like connects to the bed if you want. And I thought I would want to be responsive that way, but even the smallest sound, he's just sleeping.
Yeah.
The small sound, I'm like, awake. And I'm like, oh my gosh. Like,
well, you're
sleeping
healing your nervous system through that now.
Yes. And it's been years now, like at least 2.5, 3 years since I worked in those roles. But because I did it for over 6 years, maybe longer, I can't even count now. Like,
yeah, it's going to take time.
It doesn't turn off. So I think there's things that we build that we say, like you're talking about thriving in chaos, right? Like, yeah, I can thrive in chaos. I can be super adaptable, but it's something I claim because I needed to make a positive outcome from it. And it's good to be adaptable. It's a great skill set to have, but I don't need to own that I like being adaptable.
Yeah.
It's like in certain situations, adaptability is something I absolutely can do because I built that skill, but it doesn't mean that whenever somebody comes and just changes the plans, I have to be okay with it.
Right. Well, that's your boundaries.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's self-love.
Exactly.
That's self-respect. You know what I mean? That's
and
like...
that's what I mean. Like, we have to define it differently. So, you know, I looked up in my mind, how do I say it? In my mind, I wanted to characterize this year for myself. When I think about self-love, I want it to be wild self-love. And it was sticking in my mind, but I was like, why do I keep thinking of wild self-love? So I actually looked up the definition because I'm a nerd. And wild is living or growing in the natural environment or behave in an unrestrained manner.
I like the second one better.
Right? And it's interesting because I think even when you say wild, like, oh, those kids are wild, it has a negative connotation. But like, what does it mean to have wild self-love?
It's like being unafraid to explore all of you. It's so like, and like reclaiming my body has been a big thing. Like connecting with my pussy, for example, my breasts, my jaw. I told you I'm going to go have jaw surgery soon. Just my whole body, like being able to be one within myself. And what I mean by being one within myself is like being able to look at myself and love myself. And again, not the judging and like, oh, the cellulite, the stretch marks, this, that. Oh, it smells, or oh no, I can't do this, or being like super like you don't even touch yourself. You don't even like. You want a man to do all that though, right? But you're not willing to even like do that. Like, how do you even know what you like? Yeah. Like, there's just so much that comes into
more things we don't talk about.
A deeper layer of self-love. It's like maybe some women are not ready for that.
Yeah.
And I didn't jump into that right away.
Right.
Again, it was like the working out. It took some time. Then it was like the emotions, getting to know like my traumas, inner child healing, all that. Then it was like allowing myself, not even that like is the most recent thing, that allowing myself to be loved by another. But the one that came in between that was like going into the world of self-pleasure. Going into the world of connecting with my pussy. The book Pussy by Regina, I forget her last name, but that book right there was just like, whoa.
I gotta look it up.
Yes, it's essentially just understanding that, like, for one, your body, your womb as a woman, it creates life. That's incredible. Like, how?
Regina Thomas Hour?
Yes, I think that's her.
I don't know
It's
if I
the only
pronounced
book
that
called
right,
Pussy. So
okay.
yeah.
It came right up.
But like your womb creates life. So this is like another layer of also manifestation, right? Being able to tap in with your creative life force. We've heard of chakras, you know, like people connect with that in a sense of aligning that, but it's really just aligning with your whole self and understanding that you can tap into different powers of your body by being connected to it. But if I'm disowning it, if I'm afraid of it, if I don't like it, if I'm judging it, you cannot, that's not self-love. So you can still be like, well, I want to work on my body.
Right.
You could still be like, well, I want to lose, 10, 15 pounds, or well, I want to get this tighter, or well, whatever. You can still want those things and you can still be in this transformation process. But while in that transformation process, even if it's surgeries like my jaw, I had to come to terms with like, I love myself as I am now because I don't want to have the surgery and then be like, something else, then another thing, thing, because I truly don't love who I am. Right. So it's
the why. Why are you doing these things?
Yeah. And it's like, again, like there's nothing wrong with wanting to change these things about your body. I want to be fit.
Yeah.
There's a drive in me that like, okay, I want to work out. I want to be fit. I want to feel tight. I want to feel sexy. Of course, this is our human vessel. And at the same time, in those moments when we don't, in the moments when we're judging, in the moments when we're critiquing ourselves or we're feeling insecure, can we sit with that just a little bit longer? And in sitting with it, it's like being able to be aware that it's there.
Yeah.
Okay, I'm feeling insecure. Why? Well, this person said something, or my clothes is not fitting, or I feel like I can't do certain things like before. Maybe you've become a mother, or like some new things. A lot of things change, right? In our seasons of our cycles of our life. It's just like, okay, like I get that. And can I be my own best friend here?
Oh, girl, that's what I was just going to say. I was like, you got to be your own homegirl in that moment.
Yeah.
Like, what would your homegirl say to you?
Yeah. And one thing that's really like touched people's hearts even deeper is like, what if that was your daughter?
Yes.
Talking to you like, Mom, I don't like these things about my body. What would you tell her? You'd be like, let's go get lipo. You're not going to do that. Like,
right.
Like, let's go get some like, big titties. Like, no, you're going to be like, baby, you have an incredible body. God bless you with this body. Your body can do so many things. What do you love about your body? And who told you that? Who even said that to you?
Right.
How did this even come into your awareness? Because if we can only open our eyes, we can see that bodies are in different shapes and sizes everywhere.
Absolutely. And
that's
they are loved.
And that's what makes the variety.
Right.
Right. And so it's just like, again, a lot of these perceived things are not even ours. They've been put in our minds, our perceptions, our thoughts by other people or the world, social media, society, movies, things like that. Right. Yeah. And this is where we've got all these things distorted. Love, relationships, like what happiness is, success. Like it's so twisted into whatever wants to teach you what should be. And it's like, no, again, you're not comparing, just put yourself, stay in your lane. And it's a big subject though. I think wild self-love means to allow yourself to be uninhibited. Right? Like, who are you beyond what you've been told? Yeah. Beyond the box that you're living in, beyond what you're afraid of. And that really is meeting yourself in the fear, or meeting yourself in the insecure, or meeting yourself in the anger, meeting yourself in the parts of you where you're like, I don't want to look at that. Nope. I don't want to be her because I don't like her. Right. Well, guess what? She's going to be running the show. Exactly. Especially in a lot of unconscious ways, like the way you're being manipulative and you don't even see it, or the way you're being passive aggressive and you're not even aware of it, or the way you're shutting out and like blocking good people out of your life, self-sabotaging, not responding to messages and texts, or you say you want to do this business thing, but for some reason you can't sit down and do the thing. Right. That's because there's parts of you that are not integrated. There's parts of you that I don't want to look at that. Well, you have to. Yeah. Yeah. And then the wild part, for me is just like the fun. I do, maybe it's that like sexual version of me, but like I feel like really being able to be playful with yourself in that way. Because again, I don't want this like, okay, we just do it and we're done. It's like, no, like deep, like soulful, like, oh my God, like union of like your spirit as one. You know, it's like there's so much to that, and getting out of your head. You know, getting out of your head, you're not judging yourself. Like you can't, like, how can you have that with another if you can't even have that with yourself? So being able to play, being able to dance naked in your room, you know, being able to like do these things that maybe you've been taught that are bad or weird or out there or whatever. But the wild part is like letting yourself be uninhibited. Truly. Just free. You know,
absolutely
free the titties. You know, that's like a big one too.
Girl, I can't right now. I'm milking. That is one of the things I have least enjoyed, is that I do not like sleeping in a bra, but now I have to because of breastfeeding. I didn't think about that. I don't know how other people do it, but I don't like leaking in bed.
Well, it would leak everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Anyways, that's a tangent.
I wonder if they have like a shirt that just like
holds it all in?
Yeah, like pads. That'd be smart.
There probably is. There probably is. I'm gonna have to look it up.
You gotta make one.
Right, but you see, even with the shirts, they probably have like lining, or something fitted. I just like loose things when I'm sleeping. We'll figure it out.
Well, I actually just started sleeping in big t-shirts, and it's the best thing ever.
Yes, it's the best.
It's like the best.
It's the best, and I'm always freezing, so I'm like sleeping in sweatshirts half the time.
It's cold now.
I am. Anyways, okay, so yes, I agree with everything you're saying on the wild self-love piece.
What's your version?
And I would add to it that I think another way that I define wild self-love is being unapologetic about how you love yourself. So like when we're talking about boundaries, I used to set boundaries but then apologize about them. You know, like, actually, this is my boundary here. I'm sorry, but it's like, no, just take out the I'm sorry, but like, this is my boundary.
Period.
Yes. And I think what I've noticed in taking out the apology after setting a boundary is that it also gives permission for other people to be clear about their boundaries without apology. So when we're living unapologetically, it's a better way of loving ourselves than trying to prep everything with an apology, because then you're more worried about I guess other people's approval in a way, right? So it's eliminating that, oh, I'm going to make you feel bad. And it's like, while I hope you don't feel bad about whatever this is, it's not about you. This boundary is to protect me, because it is how I love myself. So I like what you're saying of the uninhibited piece, like being uninhibited and free in your body and who you are, and being unapologetic about how you love yourself when others are looking in, because people are always watching. We live in a fishbowl mentality. Like, people are always watching, but at the same time, nobody's looking at you the way you think they're looking at you. Nobody actually cares.
Everyone's in their own shit.
We care so much more. And we think people are perceiving us certain ways.
Girl, that's a big conversation right
Most
there.
of the time, nobody cares.
It's like, how can you care less?
Yes.
And when I started learning about trauma and like healing, and again, I didn't call it trauma. Like, even though I experienced those things that was blatantly like rape, I was like, that wasn't rape. You know, it's like you're trying to just make all these, like, you're trying to like just come to like an understanding. Like, so anyway, like when I found out about like the trauma, and it's like, oh my gosh, what were we talking about? And just like,
no apologies. Boundaries.
So being able to really own, like, not caring about what people think, for example. It, like, I heard in the trauma space that, like, by not caring, it's a trauma response. Right? So it's like, no, of course we care, because we need to care, because you need to be and have community. And so again, the contradiction that we talked about in the beginning.
Like, people say no F's given, right? But in some sense, you need to care about yourself. Like, still give an F, but about yourself.
And I think too, not coming off as like, the way you treat people is really important. Right. And you can show people how to we all show people how to treat us by the way that we have those boundaries and those standards for ourselves. So it's coming past, like, I think we're unlearning all the people pleasing, and unlearning to live in our trauma, and unlearning. So people are going to take offense, or people are going to get, take it personally, or
well, if they're used to you a certain way and something changes, then of course people might react.
Right.
But you would react too.
Yeah. And this is where conversations happen, right? Like having those conversations with a friend. And, I've had loss of friendships, and I've had gains of friendships. And I mean, loss of friendships have felt like a breakup.
Yeah.
It's like, so it hurts, but it's also, again, learning curves of like how we're changing, and that not everybody is going to be with us forever, right? A season, a reason, or a lifetime.
Absolutely.
I heard that once and I was like, I love that. And that's really
so true.
It's so true. There's so many reasons why people come into our lives.
Yeah.
You know, it's like we're asking God, we're asking the universe for certain things. I want to be great at relationships.
Yes.
That's my thing. That's my thing in life. And I, of course, want to impact so many women to be able to live a fully expressed life.
Right.
Like full, like I love my life. I'm so proud of who I am. And again, to be able to be in their deathbeds, just so like excited about the life that they lived. Right. But in order to get that, we need to be able to be willing to like have these conversations and also have loss and endings and beginnings. And in order to grow through and be that person that can be whatever it is that you want, that you equate to success,
Right.
happiness, you know, those things that you want to be, it's like training ground. Like, okay, you said you wanted a business, so you got to be more organized. You got to be on time. You got to learn how to communicate. Like, it's just, you're just going to like
do the things.
Wake up and just be that. No, it's training ground, right? Like, okay, you said you wanted to have healthy relationships. Dope. You don't know how to have that. So you got to learn. So that means
Learn and unlearn and learn and unlearn.
Yeah. Yeah. And that means, I think another thing too, with a lot of like people in general, but the women that I've worked with that I've noticed as a pattern is like, okay, I want to manifest love. I want to manifest a partner. I want to manifest a happy family. And I've been doing it for 6 months now, manifesting. So where is it? Like, and they don't say those exact words, but it's like understanding that, first of all, you've been thinking like this for the last, how many years? You know, what did you learn really from your mom and from your aunts and from your grandmas and like your tias and your uncles? Like for me, it was like, we stick with the same guy through all these things, through abuse, through cheating, because you're married, because you have kids till the end, you're loyal, right? I've seen that. I've seen that in particular play out, right? Or with my mom in particular, it was like, we depend on this guy and we have no say, period. We just do what we have to do just to have that, right? That love or that support. So when you want something in particular, like love, anything, like it takes time. It just does. And you're going to have so many relationships in the in-between. You're going to have so many experiences in the in-between that are going to help you get out of that one thing or then realize love. Or like that song by Ariana Grande, thank you, next, thank you, next. And she talks about how each guy taught her certain things and how she taught herself certain things, right? Like that's really what it is. You know, each person.
You know what? I have not liked Ariana Grande until this moment. Now I appreciate.
I love
Thank you
her.
for giving me an appreciation.
I love her.
It's not that I don't like her, just I can't see her or think about her without imagining her in
the show.
Yes, in the cat show, and that was like the most annoying voice to me. So I just couldn't. That's a tangent, but
we're so good right now. Is that her voice?
Yes,
I've heard.
It killed me. It killed me. I was like, I can't watch this show.
Well, there's two in particular that I love. Okay. That one, and then the one where she's talking about manifesting. But you know, it's just an example of like truly, really, these people come into our life wherever you are, no matter where you are right now in your journey. Just look and reflect at the relationships, look and reflect at the things that are working and that are not working. You know, in your career, your business, or whatever it is that you're doing with your purpose, look at the things that are working and not working. And that's your guideline right there.
Yep.
You know, like thank so much the path that has brought you to this point right now.
Right.
Like gratitude and appreciation has been so big.
Yeah.
And it's so hard to like remember, because sometimes we're like, but the next thing, but I want more, but I'm ready. Are you really? Because if you were ready, you would have it.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
yep.
And so become ready and become the person that can like hold the duality of like, I'm not there yet, but I'm also not over here.
Yeah.
You know, and be able to like appreciate the journey. But yeah, it's so, I love this journey so much. Like it's the most beautiful gift you can give yourself. And like going into this journey of healing and manifesting the life that you love. Call it manifesting or call it just achieving, whatever. It's just a word. I'm definitely more woo. I believe in some things that you cannot see. This has helped me with my healing journey in particular, because I was like, what the hell is God? Because that was not God. What happened when I was a kid? I had to overcome a lot of like religious manipulation too, because God and the devil and the fear tactics of that were used as a way to like brainwash us essentially. You know, so it was like when I got out of
humans making God who they want him to be,
like,
rather than
not God.
knowing who God is.
And I did so many things, like drinking and driving a lot, that eventually I remember the day, I cannot count how many times I drank and drive. Okay. Like when I was like from 17 to like 22 ish, a lot. To never have gotten a DUI, to never have gone into like an accident or hurt anybody. One time I got, we were downtown at Iguanas, or not Iguanas, what was the one? Lavix. For those alcoholics out there, previous ones, they're going to be like, that was the spot. That was where you'd go after you go out to drink. So you'd go get a burrito after, get some food. And I was there with my girl. She got out. There was no parking. She went and ordered. I don't know what I thought I had to tell her, but I had to tell her something, obviously. So I parked in the red zone and went out to tell her something. By the time I got out, they're like, the cops were there, in my car. And I'm like, oh, yeah, I'll move. No problem. They're like, well, license and registration. They knew I was drunk. Two girls, I was being hella cool with them. The lady over here is talking to me, whatever. The other one took my license. She comes back, just throws me my license, and is like, you're lucky we gotta go. And they dipped.
Sheesh.
Dude, I literally drove around because I didn't want to stay in the red anymore, waiting for my girl, and I cried. I sobbed. I was like, oh my God, because I knew I was gonna get a DUI. Like, thank you, God. Thank you, God. And I was just like, that really was like almost like a kickoff of like, well, what is out there? Because for the longest time, I couldn't connect with it. I was mad at it. I was angry at it. I didn't understand it. I didn't want to even say the word God. And so it made me really comfortable to connect with the universe for the longest time. And so for me, like, I just believe in forces unseen. I believe that there's something out there that just loves you, loves me, is for the greater good. I believe that there's something that created those beautiful flowers, that there's just patterns, in geometry, like when you study these things, like the shells on turtles, and like just this perfection of like beauty that created me and you, and the way we function and we can give life. And so I didn't know what to call it, but now I can call it God, and I could be good with it. I don't see it as this guy in the sky. I see it as an energy more than anything, a love. But yeah, it's like a creative force, so I'm all about the woo. I'm all about the woo.
I hear you. I absolutely believe in God, and I think it is so important to me. Everybody has a different perspective on it, but it's so important to me that folks find God in their own ways, that it's not forced or shoved down, because I think that's where sometimes the challenge of religion as an obstacle rather than as a pathway to him comes in. And like you said, I hate to hear it, but it is so true that a lot of trauma comes from religion or the church, and church hurt, as we say. But God is so much bigger than that.
Church hurt.
Yeah, I had a lot of church hurt. I really did. And
I have church in my car.
That's gonna be like a whole nother
shower.
Like it's a whole nother episode.
Yeah, and like whatever you believe. It's like
right. But your faith practice is what's most important, because your faith practice and your connection to God and your understanding of Him, Him, her, universe, however you want to describe it, is going to be also how you start defining self-love for yourself, because you start learning what love really is. And when you know what love is from God, that you know how to love yourself. It's bigger so and deeper and unapologetically.
It just feels like a warm hug.
It does.
When you can tap into that for real.
Yeah,
it's the best love. And that's how I think. So I had a ayahuasca experience like 2021.
I'm scared of that.
Girl,
I don't want to be vomiting.
Well, it was like,
but I hear the powers. I hear how powerful it can be.
For me, I guess with marijuana, with weed, I also have had these experiences more recently than when I would do it when I was 15 or 16, right? Like, it wasn't like that. It was just like we getting high and that was it. But to be able to connect with, like, essentially the way that I look at it is like, okay, if you imagine like just carrying an umbrella and then God's trying to talk to you, or like your blessings are like raining down and you're just like, nope. Like, because of the resistance that we have within ourselves, which is the identities that are poor, that are bad, that are ugly, that are angry. We're afraid of these, that, judging. That's like the umbrella.
Yeah.
So until we put that down and really see ourselves as good people, as people worthy of good things, as God loving us or the universe loving us. Like I hear that too. It's like, well, I don't know if God really loves me or God wants to bless me. Or I don't know if God wants these things for me. Like, what you mean? Because of your color, because you're a woman, because, you've been through that, therefore you're not worthy of good things? That doesn't make any sense. God is not biased. Love is not biased, but it's us that are biased, right? And we block our own blessings. Like, straight
Don't
up.
block your blessing.
Straight
Don't
up.
do it.
Yeah. So when like you can put that down, and for me, the ayahuasca was a way that I felt that, but I had already felt that previously in meditation. I just felt it like profoundly bigger in the ceremony.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, I've been here before. I know what this is. This is divine love. This is alignment. This is being in tune. This is just being here one within myself.
Yeah.
This is home. Right. And so we can find it in different ways, but I am a huge advocate of obviously finding it for yourself, within yourself, naturally, without anything. People can get it when they're high or they're drunk or other ways, in terms of because they're not like tripping or they're not thinking or they're just like in the moment, right? You like allow yourself to kind of loosen up and just, but is it conscious? Not really, because we're in a state of, influence, that it's almost like you can't really heal in that sense because you're not
The
aware.
comes after.
Well, and you're not aware when you're like under the influence of something. There's always integration that needs to be done, right? So let's say I'm like, hey, I want to be better about setting these boundaries with my friends. They get mad at me when I don't text them or something, right? So like, if we get this like click of like something when we're buzzed or like we're high, and we could write it down, but there's still like the act of doing something. Right. So when I got all the downloads in ayahuasca in my experience, I saw all these things. I felt all this love. Cool. But doesn't make you don't walk out of there like a changed person. Sure, you had these experiences, right? That you can say, hey, I had that experience. Like, I know this is possible. But I don't know that I would have known that had I not meditated prior, like, and felt that already in my meditation.
You were already doing the work.
Right. And so like, I think like it's important to like remember that we can have these awarenesses and we can have these experiences, whatever it is, ayahuasca, mushrooms, like plant medicines. But in order for us to like really change the way that we do things so we can upgrade who we are and like upgrade our life is to implement and practice it over time.
Yeah.
And it just becomes who you are.
Yeah.
And in the implementing and practicing over time, you're going to mess up. You're going to fall short, maybe say things the wrong way, maybe not follow through, but it's in that of like, you get back up and you keep going, you get back up and you keep going. And then that's where like the self-compassion piece is so huge. Like that's real self-love, is when you can be like, you got this.
Yeah.
You're okay. Look at me. We're going to get through this. I love you.
Right.
You're good. Stop it. Don't go there. Don't go there. Like, it's just not the vibe. You know that already, right? Like, I have had so many conversations like that with myself, where it's like, it's okay. You're going to be okay. Like that part of you, that mind that's just going there. It's just where you're used to going. And again, working with therapy or like other coaches or people that have been in this space absolutely helps, because it helps you to understand what's happening.
Right.
And then you don't feel so crazy, or you don't feel broken. You're like, oh, that's just like my brain doing something to protect me. Or like, it's just a response.
Yeah, I hear you. I feel like this has been such a real conversation. And to your point earlier of saying you have to be around people you can have these conversations with, that's really what I want for people listening to this episode to get most, is if you don't feel like you can have conversations like this with the people around you, you got to check who you're hanging out with.
Yes.
You really do. I have to shout out Shirley, because originally we were going to make this a group chat,
Shirley,
a group
we
episode,
miss you.
but Shirley connected Leslie and I, and it was exactly that. Hey, I think you're going to like this person. It wasn't necessarily for the podcast at first. It was like, I had these great conversations. It was deep, which means you're probably going to like having these deep conversations. Like, we don't all have to be on the same mindset or believe all the same things, but to be able to talk about these things is the circles I want to be in.
Yeah.
You know, the people that I want to be connected with, everybody who's trying to grow higher in themselves and help others along the way. That's what this is all about.
And love on each other, for real.
Yes. So thank you, Shirley,
yes,
first of all.
Shirley.
And then to anybody listening or watching that is like, I don't know if I have those circles right now, and you're trying to evaluate that, please don't hesitate to reach out to either of us, because I'm volunteering you right now.
The DMs is open.
Yeah, I was like, I'm volunteering Leslie right now. But I think that's how it happens, how we create communities of anybody, but especially of women who can support each other, especially in entrepreneurship and business environments, without competition against each other, but really lifting each other up. This is how we do it. So Leslie, thank you for having this conversation with me. Is there any last thing or last comment you want to share with those listening today?
You know, I would just like say to anyone out there listening to this message, thank you for being here and just opening your heart and your mind to learning and growth, because I know that growing could be very uncomfortable, and to really be able to encourage you to keep going and to know that it takes so much courage and bravery to do the work that you're doing. So like, be so proud of yourself. You know, if you're doing this work, like, it is not for everyone, and maybe it is, but like, it's not. Like, you have to make that conscious choice, you know? But like, if you are, like, be so proud of yourself. Like, be for real. And like, be like, damn, I'm doing a good job. And just keep going. And yes, surround yourself with incredible women like yourself. And yeah, I would just say to keep going and love on the parts of you that are here and brave enough to do this work.
Good energy all around.
Yes. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Leslie.
Appreciate you.
Thank you, Shirley. That's a wrap.
She's the best. Thank you so much.
Thanks for tuning in to the Here to Uplift podcast. I hope you're finishing this episode feeling inspired and ready to take action. We want to keep the stories and inspiration coming, so please take a moment to like, subscribe, and share this podcast with a friend. We really appreciate it. Welcome to the Uplift community, friend. Please join us for another episode soon.